Hello, everybody, and welcome back to After Hours with Tim and
Jonathan.
And today's top shelf topic, we're going to be talking about leadership, what it is to be a leader, what is a leader, and how do you be a leader if you're trying to be a manager as well and owning a business. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's go ahead and talk. Jonathan.
Did you already take off your top?
Cheers. How would you define leadership, Jonathan?
Well, that is actually where I thought I would start. Thought we'd start with the actual definition of a leader versus a manager. And
always pull up Webster first.
So it says a leader, the person who leads or commands a group, organization, or country. And then a manager is a person responsible for controlling or administering all or part of a company or similar organization.
Okay, so managing and leading are two different things.
They're two different things.
But it is possible to be a leader
and manage.
And a manager.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what do you think it takes? Like what's the cut that differentiates a person to like this person's a leader or this person's just managing?
I think a manager is going to be somebody that really more so sort of points and directs, and a leader is somebody that sort of creates a vision, sort of brings everybody on board for like an ultimate goal.
It's kind of like a dictator. The difference between a dictator and a good leader, because like a dictator is the one who's just like, it goes my way. The leadership is more like, you know, an ensemble or a collection of like, listen, we're all on the same team. We all want the same goal, and I'm the one to like, you know, I'm the person in power who gets to actually.
I still think a leader could still be sort of a dictator too. I mean, if that's the definition you're using, because they're still going to want people to follow what they want to accomplish.
So it really comes down to the person.
Oh, it absolutely comes, I think, down to the person.
So you can have a good manager, but they're not a leader. So then what is that? What is that attribute?
That makes them a good leader?
Well, that makes them a leader, but a good leader, yeah.
Again, I mean, I think it's somebody that can actually instill, they sort of bring out the best in people, but also sort of bring out the best in people that are going to go toward the ultimate goal or growth or whatever it is that the leader's trying to achieve. A manager is going to be more of like, I need you to do this and this and this today.
Sure.
You know, report back. And a leader, you know, they may even relinquish some control to the person, you know, to give them that self-confidence and all that to help accomplish certain goals. So they're going to be, I think they look more individually at people than I think a typical manager would.
I think the name of the game, as far as what I think for a leader, is charisma.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think that a good leader also has control. And I think that's different than being a dictator in the sense of, you know, you were saying.
Demanding control.
Yeah, but I think that a leader has control. All right, so, okay, looking at it then from your perspective then, what are the attributes of a leader to you?
Someone who's charismatic, someone who's enthusiastic, someone who has like a social energy to attract followers and able to guide them through challenges. Someone who, like, I guess, believes in their purpose or everyone's purpose.
And I guess that's where I feel like, so I think you saying some of those things, I do think that I do have some of those qualities, so thank you. But I think where I am failing is creating that ultimate vision that everybody can see. Because I think you know that I'm charismatic and things like that. I know you didn't directly just say me, but I know since you said I have leadership
qualities. Oh, no, you're all
qualities.
charisma.
But I think that I'm missing that. You know, maybe you know sort of the vision because you and I talk a lot, but I'm missing that vision in terms of like getting everybody else on the team on board of understanding like what we're ultimately after, making it more customer centric, you know, all of that.
Okay, so that's a good segue into talking about, can everybody be led? You know, like a person could be a good leader, but some people just don't want to be led.
No, I don't think everybody
They don't like authority, or they don't like to be told what to do, or they'll see a good leader and just say, oh, they're just telling me what to do, and I don't like that sort of thing. They're just being so and so. Like they're jaded to leadership. So do you think there are some people that just can't be managed and can't be led, or is it all by the participation of the follower?
I think there's definitely certain people that can't be led.
There's always someone.
Yeah, there's always somebody. I also think that there's a lot of people that, you know, maybe it wasn't the right leadership management style for them, you know, to follow or, you know, to try to help and work with the manager or leader.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. But I think that when it comes to can people be led, like, for example, I've owned my own company. I've never worked for anybody, but I could definitely be led by somebody, but only if I did feel like they have a good vision and if I feel like they are in control. Like I'd have no problem working for somebody that I feel like is in control, has a really good perspective on what they want to get done. But if I don't see that, I would definitely stop acknowledging them.
That's really interesting. I never thought of somebody who's like never worked for somebody. They've only worked for themselves, or people intentionally work for themselves because they don't like working for other people. But you're a rare case of where you've never really worked for anybody except for yourself.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes into the question: do you think leaders are born or are they made? Because you're a leader, but you're not a leader through experience. Because I feel like some leaders have to know what bad leadership is in order to be a good leader. It's kind of like if you grow up with a dad who treats you poorly, you grow up not to be that dad, you know? So you learn from that experience sort of
I
thing.
guess that's that whole nature versus nurture thing.
Yeah. So what do you think is the origin of what makes a leader? Is it kind of just in the genes of how they're made, or who
I think anybody can learn to better their qualities.
Sure.
You know, I mean, what is it? Is it Gary Vee? I don't know. One of them that says, you know, not everybody can be Michael Jordan. You can still perfect things. You're never going to be able to be as good
Sure.
as they are. But I mean, you could definitely get to a better point.
Well, yeah, that goes to the whole thing of like you're not competing with anyone else. You're only competing with being your better self.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know. It's tough. It's actually really tough for me to say because I consider my dad was a good leader. And I also, you know, I think he was born one. And then I also grew up around him. So I've always seen those type of things. Just like I've always seen them working for themselves, that type of thing. So I've never really
kind of taking notes and applying it.
Yeah, I guess that's that whole nurture thing. Like I never thought about working for anybody else. It's just that's what I grew up around.
Well, then let's go into our recommendations. This is like from our experience, like you mentioned your dad. I would mention my dad also as a leader. I think we grew up with you know good dads and good parentage.
Parentage. Is that a word?
It's got to be some old word. It's Webster, look it up.
Google, look it up.
There's our top shelf topic. No, but like as far as like historically, who would you think is someone you've learned from as to like the iconic leader that you think of?
As somebody that I think is a great leader, but is a modern leader, is Jeff Bezos.
Who's that?
He's the founder of Amazon.
I don't know that.
Oh, see, you know.
How many? Raise your hand if you knew that. One. That's half the audience.
More hands.
This is going to be very controversial, but hear me out. I think Hitler was an amazing leader because look how far he went. Like the way he spoke, like in his speeches, were very well spoken. Like
I don't think that's controversial. I agree.
Well, I don't want to say anything good about Hitler. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, he did awful, terrible things, and he's like the most evil person, whatever. But as far as when it comes to like a leader, I think he was amazing speaker. You know, he's very passionate. He practiced in the mirror about how he looks and how he emphasizes his words. And I'm like, yeah, a person who practices and perfects their image and then convinces anybody to do anything. Like, seriously, if a person convinces an entire country to, what's it called? The genocide. I'm sorry. I try not to think about that word. It's when someone convinces everybody, like, let's do a genocide of entire people. Like, you don't have to be brain dead to be convinced. You just have to have a really good leader that does so. Not all of Germany, you know, of course, followed Hitler, but I mean, like, he must have convinced, been very
the
convincing.
ones that didn't, he narrowed down, and
yeah.
By the end.
So I'm sorry, but I'm putting Hitler out there.
You know, as we mentioned the topic, he was one of the people I did think of, actually.
Yeah. It's the one thing, it's like, someone mentioned it in high school, and we were all like, what are you talking about? Oh, I think he was a great leader. I'm like, and then I started to think about it, like, you know what? I think he's right. I think Hitler was a great leader. He was just a horrible person, you know?
It's actually funny. Grant Cardone in one of his books even mentioned Hitler.
Really?
But then he actually went on where, you know, you're worried about being controversial. He called him a coward for committing suicide instead of trying to finish out everything.
Well, okay. Wow.
So,
there's another topic we could go into.
And not that he was
cowardice.
Not that he was saying it was a good thing either, but it's just, you know.
Well, yeah, that does say a lot about a person if they're, you know, taking an easy way out after not following through with their whole. It's kind of like the captain going down with the ship.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Even if it's a bad ship.
Even if it's the Titanic. But no, that's my recommendation. And you mentioned Amazon. Like, why is the founder is founder?
Yeah.
Why is the founder of Amazon like a perfect example of a leader?
Well, I mean, look at, for one, I mean, how he's been able to scale a company. You can't do that unless you can get people on board with you. Because
Right.
I mean, as we've talked about before, you can't build a company by yourself. You have to bring people around you, and they'll have to be thinking like you. And he's also just, I mean, super customer centric, and I think that all of his employees see that.
Okay, so let me I guess devil's advocate, but let me put out Steve Jobs. He was a very successful like business titan,
Yeah.
but was he a good leader though? Because he's kind of notorious for being very strict, very unsettling, very unsocial, just very just very
And
difficult to
and
work
you've heard
with.
a lot of people come out and say that because a lot of people started to follow his style.
Yeah,
And actually, a lot of people have come out since and been like, it was a bad idea to follow his style.
that's right. It kind of really ate away at the people who worked very hard. But it makes you wonder. It's like, how did he get that far? Being his.
I think his
personality?
overall vision probably still is what brought people on. Like, people wanted to be a part of Apple. They didn't necessarily want to be a part of Steve Jobs by that point, maybe. Like, they wanted to be a part of what the vision of Apple was.
Yeah, well, or his futuristic sort of viewpoint of where technology
Yeah,
is
I mean-
going to lead.
Because, I mean, he had amazing views. It's just you hear that he was a real jerk.
Yeah, Steve Jobs, he kind of broke through the parameters of like, we don't have this now, but it's going to be here in 10 years, and he knew that because he just as if it was there. That's what he just kind of strived for. But of course, he had to like, okay, forget social norms, forget the faux pas, like what people say you can and can't do, because that's limitation. He just did it. He was indifferent to if people liked him or not, which is what carried him through. Because otherwise, if you care about what people say you can and can't do, that's going to limit you. That's going to kind of suppress your vision. So do you think it's possible to have a vision that breaks those limitations and still be following like the social norms of being decent, being kind, considerate? Do you think it's possible?
It obviously was.
For him, it was, but
Yeah, but I
at
mean, that's what I'm
what
saying. I
cost?
think, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because like he wasn't a good leader, but he also was a good leader. Like, I mean, he got the job done. No pun intended.
Or if you can be a leader and a manager, maybe. And he was a manager at that point, but maybe the way his managing style of people was horrible, but he was a really good leader in the sense of vision.
It's weird. I mean, there's all these great stories. He actually hired somebody to manage who had no idea what the technology was. She had no idea how anything worked, but she knew how to manage people, and that's all he cared about. And she was like one of the best managers in the whole business. But
So
like,
as a
knew
leader,
to
he
pick
knew how to
people.
hire right.
Yeah, he didn't care, but
Yeah.
like he didn't care if people like were like cared about the vision or anything. Just do your job,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that is one of the huge things is definitely to be able to hire right. So, I mean, I think as a leader, if you got to know what people to bring on to start building that foundation.
Yeah.
And I think that's something necessarily as a manager you may not do as much. I think that's some of the things that definitely separate a leader. And again, that's where I feel like I'm trying to start to scale like our business, and those are the things I'm trying to learn. I feel like right now I might have some of those qualities, but it's still so much more of just managing right now. I'm
It's
still
always a learning experience. It's never something like, okay, you're a good leader, you can stop now. It's like
and
you're always
I
gonna be
think
picking
anybody
stuff
that owns a business, like that is super, super important to try to raise your quality of becoming a better leader.
It's also kind of, don't get frustrated with yourself if people aren't following you. It's just like, it's not that you're bad at doing it or that they just don't want to be a part of it. It's a learning process for everybody. It takes time, to get that traction, to get that familiarity with people, to get to know them better. I definitely believe in investment of people. So like getting to sit down and get to know the person I'm working with, it really creates a lot of opportunities to kind of do above and beyond in the future, because you are kind of back to back. It's like the Spartans. They would just they're as the strongest as their weakest link. They're just banding beside each other because they all believed as one unit.
Again, leadership, vision, things like that. Like I was just at a large company recently talking to some clients, and you walk around their entire building, this company has like mission statements, quotes from success, people like Steve Jobs.
Inspiring stuff.
I mean, we're not talking a small company like, 20 people. We're talking, this is $1 billion company. And the fact that they find it important, or their leadership finds it important, to put all these different values and things out there to cultivate. I mean, again, I think that's what separates leadership
it's caring
from
about
just
the
management.
morale of,
Yeah.
of people, in your employ.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's a lot to chew on there, folks. This has been After Hours.
You drank all that already?
This has been Tim and Jonathan in After Hours. Thanks for drinking with us.
Thanks.
It's root beer. You drank all that?